Oh, hello. I didn't see you. Welcome to Roman Talk. I am here today to interview Cavrod Aquinius, my guest.
Hello, I'm Cavrod Aquinius. I spent 20 years fighting in the 20th Legion of Rome and fought all the way from Syria to Britannica.
I'll begin reading a short passage from Caesar's Commentary de Bello Gallico. On the following day, they moved their camp from that place. Caesar does the same, and sends forward all his cavalry, to the number of 4,000, which he had drawn together from all parts of the province, from the Aedui and their allies, to observe towards what parts the enemy are directing their march. These, having too eagerly pursued the enemy's rear, come to a battle with the cavalry of the Helvetians in a disadvantaged place, and few of our men fall. The Helvetians, elated with this battle, because they had with 500 horses repulsed so large a body of horses, began to face us more boldly, sometimes too from their rear, to provoke our men by an attack. Caesar, however, restrained his men from battle, deeming it sufficient for the present to prevent the enemy from our rapine, forage, and depredation. They marched for about 15 days in such a manner that there was no more than 5 or 6 miles between the enemy's rear and our van. Now, would you mind comparing your experiences in the Legion to that of a soldier in Caesar's army?
Absolutely. While I was fighting on Hadrian's Wall in Britannica, we were attacked by the barbarians from north of the border. After a day of battle, we followed them back to their camp. Eventually, their cavalry clashed with ours and they overwhelmed us. We had to retreat back behind the wall, and I lost many of my friends.
Was it a regular occurrence that you would be sent on scouting missions?
Absolutely. Scouting was a very necessary part of the life of a soldier. It both provided food, water, and allowed us to find places to pitch camp. Additionally, it allowed us to gain information on our enemies. Without that information, we'd be essentially going into battle blind and wouldn't know anything of their formation or tactics.
Thank you. Would you tell us a little bit about how this passage accurately represents warfare, or does it?
Absolutely. You can see in the passage, Caesar's men eventually clashed with the Helvetii, and after the battle, the Helvetians gained confidence and attacked Caesar's men once again. That very accurately represents the momentum swings in warfare. Often we'll be feeling confident and we'll attack their men. Sometimes we'll be feeling too confident and we will be reckless. The same is said for our enemies.
Thank you very much. That's it for my questions.
Hello, I'm Nolan with Cavrod, and today we'll be talking about the famous Battle of Alesia, where Caesar and his armies tracked down Vercingetorix and the Gauls and trapped them at the city of Alesia, and then built a wall around them to stop food from coming in and starve them. When Caesar realized that he was being attacked by another Gallic army, he built a wall around himself to protect him and his soldiers. Cavrod, would you mind telling us what it was like in that battle?
At the center of the display here is Vercingetorix and his army surrounded by the walls that Caesar built around the city of Alesia. Vercingetorix is represented by the yellow ping pong ball. Here you can see Caesar's army surrounding them and thusly keeping them in the city while starving them. And around the outside of Caesar's army is the second set of walls he built to protect him from the second Gallic army. During this stage in the battle, Vercingetorix sent out the women and children of the city of Alesia with the hopes that Caesar would feed them and they would not starve to death. However, Caesar sent them back into the city and they were forced to suffer with the rest of Vercingetorix and his army. The second Gallic army surrounds Caesar's army and thus puts pressure on them from the outside. However, since they are able to freely maneuver within the inside of the walls, they are safe. This strategy is known today and is still taught in military schools as double entrapment. Caesar here is represented by the baseball, while the rest of his foot soldiers, or petites, are represented by the plain white ping pong balls. On top of the ramparts are the centurions, who in the army number about 60, and they are giving orders to the rest of Caesar's army, while Caesar remains with his men, providing them with moral support.
Cavrod, would you mind explaining the outcome of the battle?
Well, during the battle, Caesar feigned a retreat and brought a portion of his army around the outside of the wall, thusly tricking the Second Gallic army into thinking that another Roman army was coming to fight them. Eventually, Vercingetorix was defeated, and he was returned to Rome, where he was kept in the Carcer and eventually paraded in a triumph. After a while, he was executed.
Thank you for your time.
Hello, I'm Claudius, still here with Cavrod. Cavrod, would you please explain some of the weapons used by the average Roman legionnaire?
Absolutely. At first, we would throw the javelin known as a pilum. The pilum was a long spear with a thin and pointy metal tip. As it enters the body or the shield, the spear bends, both making it difficult to remove and not allowing the enemy to throw it back and use them against us. As we get closer, we would use the gladius. The gladius was primarily a thrusting weapon used in formation in order to attack the enemy. It would pierce their bodies and cause a lot of damage.
Now would you please explain to me some of the armor used by the Roman legionnaires?
Absolutely. Protecting the Roman legionnaire's head is the gallia. The gallia has chin straps on the side, which protect the jawline, as well as a small visor on front, which both blocks the sun and does not allow another enemy's sword to strike the helmet and thusly pierce it. On my chest is the lorica segmentata. The lorica segmentata is a breastplate divided up into smaller units of either leather or metal, which allowed better articulation for the Roman legionnaire and still provided a lot of protection.
Now could you please explain some of the tactics of the Roman army?
Well, the Roman army was composed primarily of legions. Legions were groups of 4,800 to 500 men. These legions were divided up into cohorts of 480 men, and each cohort was divided up into 3 or 4 maniples of about 120 to 160 men. As legions went into battle, they often used the tactic of the acies triplex, or 3 lines of battle. In the first line would be 4 cohorts, in the second line would be 3 cohorts, and also in the third line would be another 3 cohorts. At the head of the army was the tribune. The tribunes numbered about 10 in each legion. The head tribune was often a member of the senatorial class, who used his time in the army to promote himself politically. Also leading the army was a group of about 60 centurions. These centurions were the life and soul of the army and provided both training and expertise to their other soldiers. Specifically in training, we used to train with our gladius up against a post. We would practice on it as if it were an enemy. Additionally, we would battle each other in a sort of wrestling match known as the armatura. This trained our hand-to-hand combat skills and was favored by the Emperor Trajan.
Thanks for joining us today. A very special thank you to Cavrod Aquinius for joining us on our show, for Claudius and to Nolan for a great interview, and we hope to see you next time on Roman Talk.